Welcome to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. Use the power of discovering new habits to create success in all areas of life. Body, fitness and nutrition, being, spirituality, passion and purpose, balance, marriage, kids and relationships, business, marketing, sales, leadership and systems. Transform your life by learning how habits work. And now your host, a husband, father, entrepreneur, trainer, coach and warrior, Jesse Ewell.
Welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ewell, and today we're going to be talking about the habit of meditation. Last week, I had an opportunity to be interviewed on a show, and we were talking about meditation and all the benefits and the impact that it's actually had on my life. And so I thought, why the hell have I never done an episode on this? So today we're going to talk about the habit of meditation and the actual impact it's had on my life. And everything we're going to talk about today is going to be specifically about my experience with meditation. Now, as I was getting interviewed, before I actually did this, I started to just kind of ask myself, okay, so what is meditation? And, me kind of being a perfectionist, I began to look up, well, what is the definition of it? I don't even know if I've ever actually read the definition, but the definition says the practice of thinking deeply or focusing one's mind for a period of time. That was the best description I got of it, which to me is a pretty bad description. Because when I think of meditation, I don't really think of thinking deeply. Because this kind of, to me, is like forcing yourself into this place of thinking deeply. And I like to think of meditation as something a little more flowing, but some of the things that you can use it for is just simply to increase awareness of yourself and your surroundings. And many times people get this confused with prayer. And I like to think of prayer as myself. Prayer is talking to God. And I would look at meditation as listening to God for the answer. But when I come up with the definition of what is meditation, I don't really have a standard definition. I don't really have a definition that I've yet came to or subscribed to. And the ones that I've read on the internet, I don't feel like they actually give you a good description of what it actually is. So it's something that I am continuing to work on. And I want to be 100% honest with everybody on this is I'm not a professional meditation teacher. I'm not someone who knows everything. And so when there's times when I don't, I'm going to admit it. I have been through a program called 40 Years of Zen, which the whole basis of it is, it would take someone who's a Zen meditator 20 to 40 years to reach the same level of meditation that we did inside of a week. Now, I don't know if that's exactly kicked in yet or not, but I know this. I'm much better at it today than I was 4.5 years ago when I first started. And I feel like it's completely changed my life. And so even now, as I'm talking about this, in the next few weeks, we have actually a meditation teacher coming in, and he's going to be teaching on this. And so as we go through this experience, he's actually going to be on the podcast. So I'm really excited for that, but I'm also not going to talk about it until we get to that place. And it may be one of the first questions that I ask him is like, what is meditation? What is the definition of it? But here's some of the benefits of meditation that I've actually gotten. And, decreased stress, a change in state, awareness with what's going on in myself, just learning how to be present in the moment and just experience life, being able to be relaxed, calm, reducing anxiety, and some of the other things, regulate my heartbeat. One of the things that I've actually noticed is the more that I meditate, the better my HRV, my heart rate variability does. And it also has helped me train my mind to focus and redirect my thoughts. And so sometimes, from work or just life in general, our thoughts tend to drift away to the past or future. And meditation has been a way that's brought me back into this present moment. Some of the other things it's actually taught me how to do is get into this alpha state where I can be really creative and really set myself up to learn from that place. There's other states that you can get into, which is like gamma, which is just feeling happy, excited, joyful. And then you have this theta state, this kind of visionary, see the future state, calling things into existence. So those are just some of the benefits that I've seen. But some of the questions people often ask is like, well, where do I meditate? You could do this, in a crowded place. Some of the things I really like to do in crowded places is really focus more on breathing in those places, because breathing is something I could do just walking down the street. Breathing is something I could just stop and do in a crowded place, and it doesn't really matter. And some of the breathing things that I like to do is I like to do box breathing. And this is where you would typically breathe in for 4 seconds. You would hold it in for 4 seconds. You would breathe out for 4 seconds, and then you would hold the breath out for 4 seconds. And so kind of think of a box that's equal sides or equal breaths of the box. Getting ready for SEAL Fit 20X and Kokoro, this is one of the things that we were taught. And one of the things it does is when we begin to breathe, it brings us into the present moment of just our breath, and it begins to relax us. We begin to push down into the belly. The other breathing that I have been exposed to in the last 4 months is called HRV breathing. This is heart rate variability breathing. For many of you listening to this, you may not know what this is, but there's a lot of devices out, like the Oura Ring, the Whoop Band, several other devices. Those are kind of the two most popular. There's this thing called HRV, and it measures several things, but it measures our heart rate variability. It measures our sleep performance. It measures our heart rhythms, our heartbeat. It measures how well we've recovered from stress, from exercise, just things on our daily life. But one of the heart rate variability breathing techniques that I've learned is to breathe in for 5 seconds. And as you breathe in, you're breathing in through your nose, and then you breathe out for 7 seconds through your mouth. And this, if you think about this is a 12-second exercise. You do it, 5 times, all of a sudden we're in a minute. So just doing this for 2 to 3 minutes, 2 to 4 minutes, like you can do this literally anywhere, but you'll be surprised that this actually brings you back into the presence of your breath and back into a present place. So those are some ways, that you can meditate in a crowded place. If you don't really care, like close your eyes, and you can do some other ways. But I like to start my meditation with some type of breathing, whether it's just an awareness breathing, just breathing into my nose, out through my mouth, or it's maybe some HRV breathing or some box breathing, but it always kind of helps my system get into that flow. A lot of questions often come up is, hey, how long do I meditate? And I always say this, listen, if you're just getting started with meditation, I would say this, like start with 2 minutes. And here's why is You can do anything for 2 minutes. You can literally do anything for 2 minutes, and you can go back on previous episodes where we've talked about the 2-minute rule. You can go back to previous episodes where I've talked about this idea of habit math, where we start with 2 minutes. After 5 days, we increase and double the time. And really within 20 days, I could be meditating at kind of my ideal place, which is optimal, from everything that I've studied, between 16 and 20 minutes. Obviously, if you can do that longer, great. But most people, they get stuck on the time. They get stuck on how long, how often, all these things. Here's what I could tell you. Start with 2 minutes. And the reason why is your brain will be like, well, I can do anything for 2 minutes. And after 5 days, increase the time and double it. If you miss, just go back to the previous time. But within 20 days, you will be at an optimal level if you follow that pattern of every 5 days, you get to increase, double the time. If you miss, you go back. But really what I've heard and what I've done is the optimal time is 16 to 20 minutes. This is, I've started to do in the mornings around 30 to 35 minutes, just depending on the morning. I've recently kind of got into floating, which tends to be closer to an hour, although I haven't done that yet. I'm still just getting relaxed and in the water, but there's another way that you can begin to explore meditation is just by floating and maybe doing it a little bit longer. But really, like, the sweet spot is around 16 to 20 minutes. And if you go beyond, you're probably a more advanced meditator. If you're falling asleep, then it may actually mean your brain's tired and you haven't gotten to a specific place. And so many of the things that I've learned is that when I do fall asleep, my brain's actually tired. And if I can stay awake and stay in that state of meditation longer, then my brain has actually been trained to be in that place. And so if you find yourself falling asleep, it just may mean, hey, you're tired and you need sleep more than you do to meditate. I've always found that either way, I get exactly what I need in that situation. So some of the other things that come up is like, hey, should I do this every day? And I will say this. I definitely believe it's something that we practice every single day. And here's why. Like, in any habit that you're establishing, consistency is always key. And so, I always like to compare meditation to going to the gym. If you go to the gym once for 90 minutes, how much is it really going to change you? How much is it really going to impact your life? And so I like to think of meditation as the same way. Most people think, well, more is always better. And I say this, more often is better. And so inside of this, I would much rather see someone do 10 minutes every single day than do an hour once a week. Even though that hour may actually be longer in duration, I would rather see someone do 10 minutes every single day, because I know this, when it's consistent, we begin to change our state more frequently, more often, and we become, better at this thing. And so I always think of reps over, planning, or reps over perfection of how I actually did it. And eventually, if I do something consistently, I make it a habit. And once it becomes a habit, then I can begin to worry about extending time and other things. So number one is, yes, I definitely do think we should do this every day, but I also think you should start in a place where you can be consistent at it before you worry about the length of time or whatever else. Now, some of the other questions that often come up is there a better time of day to meditate? Personally, I like to meditate first thing in the morning. And a lot of times it's kind of like, hey, here's how I want my day to go. Here's kind of like just checking in with myself, like, hey, where am I at today? how am I feeling? How am I showing up? And, how do I want my day to look? And so sometimes my meditation starts out with an intention, and then I let that manifest inside of me during my meditation. But I always like to do a session in the morning. And like I said, I've gotten up to doing 30 to 35 minutes in the morning. And then around between like 1 and 2 o'clock, I really begin to feel tired. And I feel tired mentally. And I like to use that time as a time to kind of reset in the mid-afternoon and just get recentered and refocused on the rest of my day, check in with myself, and really just get refocused for the second half of the day. Now, some of the different types of meditation that I like to use and I like to teach my clients inside a habit-based lifestyle is, there's these loving kindness meditation, gratitude meditations, where they are kind of guided. There's body scans or embodiment exercises where we use that as a way to relax. We use that as a way to actually tune in to our body, where we can often feel stress, anxiety, maybe some fear, and really just kind of sink into our body and find any type of resistance or anything that we may be holding on to. And I also think it makes us aware of where we're actually carrying, many of the things that come up in life. There's mindfulness meditation, just being mindful of something, being mindful of our thoughts, being mindful of our patterns, being mindful of our stories, being mindful of what's going on in our body. There's breath awareness meditation. So there's, HRV, there's box breathing. These things help us become aware. And I would say this, back in personal training, one of the things that we learned at one time was like 90%, I think it was like 90 or 92% of the population actually has a breathing dysfunction. And I believe a lot of this is due to how we sit at work and also like how we constantly are sitting, and we're just constantly in this fight or flight mode. And so the way we typically breathe in that space is we open our chest, pull our shoulders back, and there becomes this dysfunction in that. So I really like the breath awareness because I think this helps people, when you do it correctly, bring themselves back into their center and grounds them back into where they're at. There's, yoga, all different kinds of yoga. Obviously, like Kundalini is kind of what everybody talks about as being more of meditation, but I really think yoga, or a lot of your stretching, is a moving meditation, movement-based meditation. I also think walking, running, doing things outside in nature is a way of moving meditation. It's movement-based meditation because, if you've ever been out in nature, a lot of times it's like, man, you're so aware of everything that's around you. It feels peaceful. It feels like you're in the present moment, just being outside. There's mantra-based meditation that, there's a lot of programs out there. There's this mantra-based meditation a lot of times is just coming up with, maybe a statement or a focal point that we can come back to when, we get distracted while we're meditating. And so the mantra-based, which is one of the first ways I learned, is just generally having a focus on something, having this statement or this word that we keep coming back to as we feel this drift. There's guided meditations, and then there's tons of apps out. There's even Muse, which I have one of those, which plays birds, when you get into a certain state. So there's a lot of different types of meditation. I'll tell you this. There's no wrong way to meditate other than just not doing it. And a lot of people are like, man, I expect to feel like this aha moment, like this light comes down on me. Here's what I'll tell you. If you want to feel that, if you want to feel something similar to that, you're going to have to do it frequently and just get in the habit, and you will begin to see a lot of the benefits. And so many of the ones that I like to practice the most, they're going to be embodiment, body scans, which I do a lot of times in the evening, breath work, which is kind of how I segue into my meditation, mantra based. So a lot of times I'll set an intention and then I'll go into my meditation. And then I like to also do some guided stuff, especially from people who I've learned from. And then let's just talk about this. What's the greatest lesson that I've learned from meditation? It's really given me an opportunity to look within for my answers and stop like running around and asking everybody else for the answers, but really to look within. And I'll tell you this, like we all have the answer we're looking for. If we're quiet enough and still enough to hear, we will eventually hear what we need to hear. A lot of times, you know, some of the things that I've learned is when things feel forced, meditation actually allows me to find my flow. And for many of this, I've actually applied this to several areas of life. Many times I've been caught in situations where I felt like I was stuck. You know, things got really chaotic, really messy, and meditation has been there to ground me and bring me back to the present moment to really find the answer and find my place, find myself. It's helped me in business decisions, like selling my gyms, moving to California, like second guessing, hey, is this the right move I'm making or not? But really allowing life to kind of flow into that decision. It's helped me in my marriage, decisions, maybe even arguments, or maybe just even reflection of, man, how am I showing up as a husband? It's helped me with my kids, fears, anxieties, worry, things that happen to them, and really just being able to meditate in that place, being able to meditate for a few minutes before I've went into business meetings and just to show up differently inside of that. But many of these embodiment moves that I've learned to do and continue to do have helped me become aware of my feelings, my fears, and my stresses. And here's the question I want to ask you today. Where in your life do you need to access a deeper version of yourself to maybe find the answer you're looking for? Maybe it's through meditation. Maybe it's just through breath work. Maybe it's just you're able to sit there in silence and just be quiet enough and still enough to find the answer. You see, today I want to invite you to explore this idea of meditation and just finding what works for you. Here's what I know. When I first started doing it, now what my meditation is completely different. But at the same time, it's not that much different. But there is no real wrong way to meditate. Just like fitness, you have to actively practice and consistently do this every day, or do some type of movement or do some type of meditation to really see the benefit. But doing this once, doing this twice, or doing it every once in a while when you feel like it, you will not see the benefit. Doing this frequently, you will begin to see the benefit in 2 to 4 weeks, if not sooner. So I invite you to begin to practice some of these different modalities that I've given you access to today and just begin to meditate so you can really experience the benefit. And I just want to thank you for being on here today and listening. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, jesse@habitbasedlifestyle.com. You can also check out my website. But if you are looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and so many others in the Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group on Facebook. This is where I'll be dropping daily habits to help you live to your full potential. If you want to be one of our next case studies and begin living this habit-based lifestyle, you can check out my website, Jesse, JesseEwell.com, or habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have an awesome day.